new features, including a new season of the Forge Pass and a brand new event to celebrate Raid's 4th anniversary later this year called the Titan event.
Is a vulnerable thing, a whim of circumstance. At any time, the smallest flap
will
of a
last several
butterfly's
weeks and give you the
wings
chance to earn
may set
anniversary points in
catastrophe
exchange
in
for
motion.
loot. To all new players,
restaurant,
Raid's prepared something
an
special for
entire
you. It's
city
time to vote on your
right
favorite starter champion. After downloading Raid, copy
Those
your
left
player
behind
ID
there
and go
did
to
not
championsselect.plarium.com to vote. This vote runs from January 16th to February 10th, with all eligible entrants having the opportunity to win epic and legendary champions, in-game items, and even Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Once the vote ends on February 10th, one champion will be crowned and the prizes will be selected via a draw. If you're an existing Raid player, you can still get involved by going to championsselect.plarium.com. You can find a special promo code that everyone can use for a small in-game gift. New players use my link or scan the QR code right here to get a free starter pack with this cool in-game loot. And if you haven't heard yet, the legendary MMA fighter Ronda Rousey has made her way into the game, and you can get her by just logging into Raid for 7 days before February 20th. You can also use promo code RAIDRONDA to get a bunch of stuff to help you level her up. I do too. Ballsy. We take those. Bing. Bang. Fuck. I didn't get the... What a nerd, bro. Oh, come on. All right. There we go. For situations like Margit, where it's not possible to get any of the spells or weapons that he uses, my loadout will remain the same as the previous boss. So in this case, I will stay as the Soldier of Godric. Fortunately, there's only 2 bosses whose gear you cannot get. I didn't mean to transition him. I wanted to get the stagger. Very nice. See you later there, big dog. The weapon of choice to cosplay as Godric is his axe, since I don't see it get used very often. And after that, I go to Kaled to get the strength talisman to just help a little bit with the damage. Jump! You absolute lord. Jesus fucking slow, bro. My God. Oh my Jesus. It is so slow. We don't upgrade weapons here. Jump. No balls. No balls jumping big. Alright, give me that riposte. Come on. There it is. How much you do? 400. Yeah, that's pretty good. This might be too late. Nah, we're chilling. God damn it. Okay. Okay, what we doing, Chief? Jump. Come on. What a weenie. Not supposed to do that. We're good. Okay. Merry Christmas. Our physic ran out, by the way, so now we're doing even less damage. Lightning. Oh boy. Alright, please don't fuck me. Man, you really aren't giving me a whole lot of punishable attacks here, are you, bud? Thank you. There you go. All right. For Radon, I decide to pick up both the great swords and the bow by duplicating his remembrance at a mausoleum, and on top of that, I pick up Radon's helmet and the charged attack talisman for the third talisman pouch. What's up, big dog? Ow! Rude. Hey! That's OP. No, this shit. No, oh, I'm out of FP. Wait, he's out of FP. Wait, what? How did that happen? Oh, oh, it's because I drank the physic. It's because I drank the physic before he spawned in last time, so that he had the stats to wield it. Ah! Where the fuck did that come from? Huh? I'm gonna need an explanation here. Okay, where the fuck is my scientific dissertation explaining what the hell just happened? I don't know if this physics gonna last long enough, which could be an issue. Well, let's find out. Oh, fuck. Okay. This weapon's too slow for this. This weapon's definitely way too slow. Probably gonna have to go fish another weapon. Is this Bloodhound Nighttime? Bop! You cocklord. Bop! Ow. Ow. Okay, you don't seem to like the whole stagger situation there, big dog. Nice try, bit. All right, there we go. Love to see it. Meow. Okay, that wasn't as good as I had expected. Is this gonna work? No, it's not gonna stay in range. Oh, I may want to go get the Bloodhound Night set. Not so. Okay, we take those. We take those. Nice and easy. Nice. Aw. Very nice. Holy fucking HP! Jesus! I couldn't get around him. Oh, that was fucking slick. I didn't even mean for it to be, but it was. All right, there we go. You know, the real flex would be to go beat some ass with this thing. Ritual Shield Talisman might be useful. I'll pick it up. Oh, look at the damage, bro. It does lightning damage is why. Oh, he's gonna get fucking humiliated with a +0 shield, bro. can't do a double charged heavy. That's a bit ambitious. All right. Kind of trapped here. I don't like this spot. Yeah, that's not gonna work out very well. What the fuck is this? I'm not where I'm supposed to be. All right, I'm busting out the big boys for the phase 2. Okay. Jesus Christ. I really don't like the rolling R1 on this weapon. It's pretty pee-pee poo-poo suck-suck. What the fuck? Dude, this guy. Meow. Look at how he's fucking spinning, dog. Damn it. Damn it. Up. Okay, I'm out of there. I'm out. I'm see you later. Nice try, bud. It was not even close. Very nice. Oh, what the fucking spinny dippy. Holy Jesus. It wasn't close. I wasn't scared. Are you scared? I wasn't scared. Now, to cosplay as Morgott, I pick up his sword, which is really awesome. This is probably my favorite remembrance weapon, and his crusty cloak. Unfortunately, I made a little bit of a mistake because I could only meet the dexterity requirements of this weapon by using the dexterity physic tier, which means I had to use this really strong weapon on a pretty weak boss that I could defeat before the physic ran out. I chose the Knight Rider in Weeping Peninsula for the Knight Rider's flail, and now you may be asking why I haven't beat Renala yet to unlock respecking, and the answer is because I would need pretty high intelligence to use the spells from both Radigan's dog and Renala. With that in mind, I go to Greyhole, get some runes, and level up my intelligence so that I actually can go beat the Red Wolf and be able to use his spells. Hello, dog.
What's the matter?
Thank you. And you're the pilgrims who turned down the electricity, right?
Word travels fast.
And where is you? You help me.
Sometimes. Is that why you called me?
I need help.
Ow.
They went up the water tower.
All right, there we go. All right, so I'm allowed to use Magic Glint Blade and Glintstone Comet Shard. Okay, we need to go pick up the Int tier. Aiden, Thief of Fire, uses a flail. Let's see. Main weapon is flail. Okay, cool. We can get the flail. We can kill Aiden. That'll do. Good call. He didn't dodge it. Yeah, but he did there. Yeah, and then here just goes Glint Blade, right? See you later, big bud. Nice knowing you. So that gets us Flame of the Fell God, which we could use right now, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to use the flail. And then we can go do Renala. Ow. What are you doing, Moongrum? Come on. Ow. All right. It's frying time, baby. Ow. 1, 2, 3. Bro. Hit the single mother. Please. Yeah, that doesn't do a whole lot of damage when I don't have FP. Please get there. Thank Jesus. Thank fuck this doesn't stagger her. That's convenient. All right. I made a mistake. I made a continuous and severe lapse of judgment.
Under my moon.
You spinny bitch. Bro. Fucking scummazed. I'll take it. Nice.
Little Rani.
Okay, so what even are all the things that Renala uses that I can use? Comet Azure, Star Shower, Glintstone, Comet Shard, Shattering Crystal, Glintstone Pebbles. Maybe I just use Glintstone, Comet Shard. I don't think I need anything else. So we'll just do that. Gotta go pick up her staff. Give me that. I doubt Niall's gonna work. That would be pretty shocking. Maybe we give like the Maurice Executioner's sword a try. I forgot how much range he has. You know, we take those. Okay, we're out of furniture, which is unideal. We were making good use of the furniture. Ow. That was close. Let's go! Let's fucking go! I didn't actually think we were going to be able to do that. Okay, now I want to go back to a more even build. So yeah, I think we do Loretta right now. I'm okay with that. Okay. Alright. Oh, come on. Oh, that's unlucky. All right, there we go. Loretta's great bow and and Loretta's Slash. The reason why I just beat Loretta is so that I could get the Magic Scorpion Charm through Sullivis's quest and the Intelligence Charm through Ronnie's quest, both of which will be nice for any weapon in the future that does magic damage. The next goal is to get the Dexterity Charm from Millicent's quest, but that involves beating O'Neill. Fortunately, I have a simple way of dealing with him, but first I need to pick up the Poison Mist incantation and beat a Miranda Flower so that I can use that incantation. After that, I get the Dex Talisman and take the Commander Standard, the Sewer Rogue. Really don't like this rolling R1. I wish it was like a shank. That's also a weird charged heavy. Whatever. I did not mean to jump into that quickly. I'm pretty sure this would be like really hard if I didn't have Ritual Shield Talisman. This seems like it would be a huge pain in the ass without Ritual Shield. Any staggers? Thank you. He just gave up. He's like, bro, I ain't hitting you, man. I ain't hit you. Come on, please. I was hoping that Blood Flame Talons would do enough blood loss for me to be able to use it on Fire Giants, but I would run out of FP before I could do enough damage. So I need to replace my Blood Flame Talons with a weapon that does blood loss without needing FP. A good weapon that meets these requirements is the Great Omen Killer Cleaver that I can get from a cave in Altus. I kind of need to be full health so that I get Ritual Shield. It's a nice bleed. I now exchange the Fire Giant Remembrance for the Pillars of Flame incantation and use that to take out one regular Erdtree avatar for the Erdtree staff and one boss Erdtree avatar for the elemental physic buffs. After that, I use the Erdtree staff to defeat Xeeks, and my plan was to use Xeeks Decay on the Godskin duo, but I didn't really have enough FP for that to work. That's why Rotten Breath is just much better than Xeeks Decay, since it uses so much less FP and still applies the same amount of rots. But we can't use that in this run. I didn't really want to waste this incantation though, since it is pretty strong, so I used it instead on Niall. And then my new plan for the Godskin duo was to use Reduvia. So I used Niall's loadout to beat Esgar below Lane-Del, and with that loadout I could use both Reduvia and Swarm of Flies on the Godskin duo, which would work much better. that's doing good. Oh, fuck. I didn't think that was gonna go over. Okay. This felt like one of the most hectic Godskin duos I've had in a very long time. Dude. You literally are not supposed to fucking attack. That is explicitly how you are fucking coded. I really don't trust Skinny here. Skinny's been a sack all day. I didn't even know who the fuck I was locked onto there. He's tripping me out. Can you please stop layering all your fucking attacks, bro? Are you serious, bro? Dude. Like, please. Behave as you're supposed to. This is just not how this fight works.
So, people are mad at the animation YouTuber Jaden Animations for coming out as Arrow Ace. Now, if you guys don't know what Arrow Ace is, it basically means that you experience very little to no physical or romantic attraction. Last year, Jaden Animations made a video talking about how she was Arrow Ace, and she actually experienced quite a bit of hate for making this video, with a lot of people saying that she was degenerate, that she was grooming her audience by coming out about this. And recently, this would happen yet again, as a thread went viral on Twitter, getting mad at Jaden Animations for being Arrow Ace. And all I gotta say to that is, it's very cringe. Who cares? It literally doesn't affect you. So, people are mad at the animation YouTuber Jaden Animations for coming out as Arrow Ace. Now, if you guys don't know what Arrow Ace is, it basically means that you experience very little to no physical or romantic attraction. Last year, Jaden Animations made a video talking about how she was Arrow Ace, and she actually experienced quite a bit of hate for making this video, with a lot of people saying that she was degenerate, that she was grooming her audience by coming out about this. And recently, this would happen yet again, as a thread went viral on Twitter, getting mad at Jaden Animations for being Arrow Ace. And all I gotta say to that is, it's very cringe. Who cares? It literally doesn't affect you. So, people are mad
When it comes to doing things in the name of science, history and archaeology are full of hoaxes. The motivations behind the subterfuge can differ greatly, ranging from something as mundane as boredom all the way to, well, outright racism. Sometimes the deception is caught quickly, with historians setting the record straight within a few years. Other times, however, the lies put forth in these hoaxes can persist for centuries. Normally, when people think of these kinds of hoaxes, they immediately think of the discoveries like the Cardiff Giant or Piltdown Man, visual spectacles designed to fool large crowds at a glance. Instead of these more sensationalized hoaxes, today we're going to be looking at some of the most famous literary hoaxes throughout history, all of which also happen to be about history. The modern bathtub was invented in 1828 by Lord John Russell of England. During business trips to England, Cincinnati resident Adam Thompson became fascinated with the things, and finally on December the 20th, 1842, he brought the first modern bathtub back with him to the United States. Unfortunately, not everybody back home in Cincinnati was a fan of these new creations. Doctors felt they were dangerous, and many others found them to be undemocratic because of how exorbitantly costly they were. As news of the bathtub spread across the country, so too did this debate. When Philadelphia proposed an ordinance to ban bathing over the controversy, it was only narrowly defeated. Boston, however, would pass theirs, thus effectively banning the practice of bathing from 1845 through to 1862. Controversy died down a bit in 1847 when Brooklyn resident John Simpson invented the zinc bathtub. This drove the price down significantly, thus alleviating the concerns of a classist device being utilized in America. Famous physician Oliver Holmes Sr. from Boston campaigned in favor of the bathtub as well, eventually winning approval for the practice of bathing from the American Medical Association in 1850. Practitioners of homeopathy would follow suit in giving their approval just 3 years later. Also in 1850, Vice President Millard Fillmore visited Adam Thompson's bathtub. After using the device, he became quite a bit of a fan. When President Zachary Taylor died later that year, the newly ascended President Fillmore ordered the construction of the White House's first bathtub. This created a brief controversy over bathtub ownership again, but with the cost lowered, doctors giving their blessing, and the full endorsement of the president, the public finally came around. Fillmore's bathtub would remain in use until finally replaced by Grover Cleveland during his first term as president. It's a rich and fascinating history, and not a single word of it is true. This story was first published on December the 28th, 1917 by famed journalist and satirist H.L. Mencken in the New York Evening Mail. His article was titled "A Neglected Anniversary" and lamented that the city's celebration of the 75th anniversary of the bathtub had been quashed by Washington, D.C.'s implementation of prohibition the prior month. The purpose of Mencken's hoax was twofold. The first was to make a point about the gullibility of the American public. The second was for Mencken to entertain himself. Newspapers weren't interested in serious journalism while there was a world war going on, but he still had to write something. The result was a light-hearted hoax, one that he never thought people would actually believe. But he couldn't have been more wrong about that. His story was published in newspapers across the country, and it even found its way into reference books and medical literature. Despite the fact that he stated publicly on numerous occasions that the article was a hoax, and even wrote another article in 1926 to set the record straight, the myth has persisted. As recently as 2008, this story was presented as a fact in a Kia commercial.
President Millard Fillmore, best remembered as the first president to have a running water bathtub. He's unheard of. So we are honoring him during Kia's Unheard of President's Day sale.
Not all hoaxes are as fun or as lighthearted as Mencken's fraudulent history of the bathtub. The Protocols of Elders of Zion is the most dangerous literary hoax ever perpetrated, and they helped fuel the already growing feelings of anti-Semitism in Russia before being exported to Germany, where it was taught in classrooms and was referenced in Hitler's Mein Kampf as being fact. There is dispute over whether the Protocols actually influenced Hitler, as many historians believe that high-ranking Nazis did not believe that the book was authentic. But it didn't matter to them if it was real because it still suited their purposes. The Protocols of the Elves of Zarn was a 24-chapter book that claimed to document a plot for Jewish world domination. It claimed to be a collection of top-secret records taken from an 1897 meeting in Switzerland of Zarnist leaders. Throughout the book, these alleged Jewish leaders discussed plans to conquer all aspects of finance, culture, and government, spreading socialism throughout the world. Hopefully, that description makes it sound like an obviously fake propaganda piece because, oh well, that's what it was. The book first began circulating in Russia at the turn of the 20th century, most likely in 1902 or 1903. We can't say for sure where the first manuscript came from or who created it, but it was published at least as far back as 1903, where it appeared as a series of articles in the ultra-nationalist newspaper Znamya. Despite not knowing who created the original manuscript or how it was first spread before appearing in the newspaper, we absolutely know who wrote the book. We know this because the entire book is plagiarized, and most of the source material wasn't even anti-Semitic in nature. Some versions of the Protocols claim to have been written by Theodor Herzl at the aforementioned 1897 meeting, but the actual authors are Maurice Joly and Hermann Goetsche. Goetsche was an anti-Semitic German novelist, and his work was used to give the Protocols that extra bit of flair. But 19 out of the 24 chapters were ripped straight from Joly's Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu. Joly's book was a political satire that doesn't actually mention Jewish people at all. It was a criticism of Napoleon III disguised as a conversation between the dead, a tactic employed by Joly since direct criticism of Napoleon was illegal. The effects of this hoax were devastating for the Jewish people, and not just in Russia and Germany. In 1917, a copy of the Protocols came back to America, where it was distributed among the United States government. It was the first Red Scare, and the Protocols tied the Jewish plan for world domination to socialism, so the United States felt that they had to spread the word. In 1919, the book was published in the Philadelphia newspaper, The Public Ledger, but they replaced every instance of the word Jew with the word Bolshevik to make sure that Americans understood that it was communists who were trying to take over the world. In 1921, the book was finally debunked and discovered to be the fraud that it was. It's not really a surprise that it took 20 years to find the original source material for the Protocols. The world was in upheaval, and neither of the original works had nationwide notoriety. Joly's Dialogue wasn't even fully translated into English until 2002. Unfortunately, incontrovertible evidence about the provenance of the work was not enough to dissuade readers from taking it seriously. Car manufacturer and famous anti-Semite Henry Ford spent his own money to print and disseminate 500,000 copies of the Protocols after the fraud had already been uncovered, until the courts stepped in and forced him to stop. Even though they have been thoroughly debunked, the Protocols remain widely available today in numerous different languages. It has been over 100 years since the truth about the book was revealed, but radicalized groups still continue to present the work as genuine to instill fear and hatred.
Can I help
It's no wonder that it has been described as the most influential work of anti-Semitism
he wanted me to give
ever
you
written.
this. A little reward for helping us peacekeepers. A UV flashlight. Could come in handy.
Samuel Ireland was an author and engraver,
said
and he had a
something about
singular
plan.
passion for the works
The
of William
VNC
Shakespeare.
tower.
He was writing his own book
Now
on the
that the
topic
lights
when he
are
took his
on, we can
teenage
use
son
the
with him to
TV
visit
antenna
places
to
of historical
broadcast our call
importance
from
to
over.
Shakespeare.
But
Samuel was
first,
also trying to uncover
what do
any
you want
bits
to
of
know?
lost
Tell me
writing
more about
by
this.
Shakespeare.
It's the
It could have been a
tallest
grocery
built
list
now.
for all
you
he
say
cared.
that?
So little of
That
Shakespeare's
antenna
life
could
is
bring the city
actually
together
documented
once
that any
more.
discovery
Nothing
would
good,
have been
I
an
bet.
important
Damn
one.
right.
Not only
The
is
city's
little of his
potential
life
shining
documented, but his
beacon
handwriting
is a
is
death
virtually
trap.
non-existent.
We're hoping
There
it'll be
isn't a
different this
single
time.
copy of
We're gonna
one of
light it up
Shakespeare's
with UV
plays
lamp.
in his own writing. All that is known to exist are a few signatures and one
would be
handwritten
if-
speech that
I
he
take it
delivered
that
in
he did.
1603.
He's been playing
Samuel's son
hide and
William
seek.
was
So
only
look
16
out.
years
And
old
when
at the
you
time.
put that
As is
flashlight
the
to
case
you
for
up.
so many teenage boys with distant fathers, he just wanted his dad to be proud of him. That's why the following year, a mysterious friend of William's, known as Mr. H, discovered a number of documents in an old chest that included a mortgage deed with Shakespeare's signature on it. Samuel was elated with the discovery, and William realized the only way to continue to receive praise from his father was to continue to forge documents. Mr. H must have had a pretty big chest, because William produced correspondence with other actors, copies of Shakespeare's books with annotations written in the margins, a letter from Queen Elizabeth I, a love letter that he had written to his wife, Anne Hathaway, and a declaration of his Protestant faith. All of these items were authenticated by experts and deemed to be genuine at first. However, William had already made his first mistake. Forging Shakespeare's signature or handwriting was one thing, as there was barely anything to compare it against, but forging letters from people whose writing was plentiful, like the Queen, was a much bolder proposition. Still, the inaccuracies flew under the radar for a while. But then William flew too close to the
Looking for
sun.
Juan
Discovered
Raynor.
deep at the bottom of Mr. H's chest were two complete but
It's
unpublished
urgent.
plays
The
by
commander
Shakespeare,
sent me.
Henry II
Monsieur Jacques
and
sent
Vortigern and Rowena.
Jacques?
William was an
Jacques
18-year-old apprentice mortgage
Monsieur
lawyer
Raynor
that
is
just
not
wanted
here.
to
I
impress
can
his
take a
dad.
message.
Writing an entire
No,
play that could
I need
mimic
to talk to
Shakespeare
him in
flawlessly
person.
would have been
Where
a
is he?
daunting task, and
Unfortunately,
indeed,
I can't
he
tell.
was not up to the
Monsieur
challenge.
Raynor is
What he
well about
wrote
to know
was
his
hardly
business.
Shakespeare, even if
Wait
people
till he
didn't know
must.
it yet, but the islands
singers.
were still able to sell the production rights to Vortigern and Rowena to London's Drury Lane Theatre for £300 plus 50% of the profits, which is roughly £43,000 today. That's a pretty good payday for a kid's first play, but the success was to be short-lived. Those involved in the play, including actor and theatre manager John Kemble, doubted that the play was authentic, noting that it was much more simplistic than Shakespeare's other works. Kemble suggested running the play on April Fool's Day, but the islands objected, so it premiered on April the 2nd. That was to be the only performance of Vortigern and Rowena until it was revived in 2008. 2
That's
days
not
before
gonna
the
be
show
happy.
went live, a Shakespearean scholar, Edmund
is
Malone,
not
published a
particularly
400-page
concerned
essay
with
attacking the
your
authenticity
images,
of the
feelings.
island's discoveries.
Do
This,
come again.
combined with the play being mediocre, resulted in allegations of forgery against Samuel. William tried to confess to the crimes and
Hayden,
even published a
getting settled in
confession,
the city?
but his father
Working on
wouldn't
it.
believe him. Samuel
Myra
didn't
and
believe
Jack
that his
sent me to
teenage son
supply.
could possibly be
Interesting
capable of
bunch.
forging all the
Not like
documents
any
or
of the
writing
other
2
PKs
entire
I've read.
plays. So
That
much for
might be because they're
William's
not
plan to make his
PKs.
dad proud of him.
Eagle eye.
To be fair, critics
Business is
suspected
their
the father
true
and
faith.
son duo of having worked together,
Anyway,
also
I can't track
believing
down
that
their
one
boss.
young man could not
Juan?
possibly have done
He
everything
likes to
by
make
himself.
himself
At the
scarce.
same time, William published his
Probably
confession.
lurking around
Samuel
the
published an
fisheye.
essay trying to vindicate his son,
Canteen?
as he still believed
Slick
that William
bastards
could
even
not
got his own
possibly
table
have
there.
done all of this on
Bribed
his own.
the cook to
Since
bring him
this was
off-menu
released at the same
goods.
time as William's
He
confession,
lives
the
like the
public
fall
saw it
never
as
took
Samuel's
place.
blatant attempt to
for
make
him
his son
there.
the scapegoat. Samuel
luck finding
died
him.
just a few years later in 1800
And
before his
good luck
reputation could be
if you
restored.
do
William's
find him.
reputation would never recover. So, a teenage boy forged numerous correspondence to and from Shakespeare, all of which fooled experts at first, wrote an entire lost Shakespeare play, which he sold and saw produced by professional actors, but then spent the rest of his life penniless and in and out of debtor's prison. All this because his dad didn't give him a hug once in a while. Sometimes an item can be authentic, yet still be the subject of hoaxes. Such is the case with the Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible. The book would be remarkable on its own, as it's the largest medieval book in the world. The Codex is 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick. It was originally 320 pages long, though the last 10 pages were removed at some point in history. It was such an impressive book that it immediately became the thing of legends. According to the story, the Codex Gigas is the work of Herman the Recluse, a Benedictine monk who was condemned to death after breaking his monastic vows. In his plea for his life, he offered to write a book containing all human knowledge in a single night. The abbot accepted his offer, so Herman got to work. When midnight came and Herman realized that he was fated to be walled in and starved to death, he knew that prayer was his only hope of survival. Herman prayed to the fallen angel Lucifer, offering his soul in exchange for the ability to finish the book in time. Out of gratitude for saving his life, Herman included a full-page portrait of the devil, which was an extremely unusual inclusion in a text of this nature. The Codex Gigas was written in the early 1200s, but there are numerous accounts from the Middle Ages that this fake origin story was already being passed around and was widely accepted as fact. In 1697, a fire broke out in the royal castle in Stockholm where the book was being held. Wanting to preserve the Codex, the £165 book was thrown out of a window where it landed and injured a bystander. This only added to the mystique of the book, helping to perpetuate the myth of its origin. As for the contents of the book, they're really pretty mundane. Despite the name The Devil's Bible, the giant manuscript is just a compilation of the complete Old and New Testaments, as well as several other books about history and medicine that were popular at the time. Although it was taken as fact for centuries, there is no reason to believe that the Codex Gigas is of supernatural origin. Though it is believed to have been written by a single person, quite possibly named Herman, it appears to be the culmination of 30 years of tireless effort rather than a single night of black
I'm
magic.
sure whatever you've heard is
Nonsense, my boy. Faith.
so.
All fluid. Work with me.
We're all familiar with stars, the massive nuclear fusion-fueled balls of plasma that populate the galaxy, filling the night sky with their luminescence. If you're a fan of all things space, you might already be aware that there are actually several different types of stars. Our Sun is a yellow dwarf star, but there are also dimmer red dwarfs, the gargantuan hypergiants, the incredibly dense neutron stars, and many more. But the universe is a strange place, and it's been hypothesized that these types of stars, the ones that we can see, are but one piece of the stellar pie. Welcome to the mysterious realm of hypothetical stars, the bizarre astronomical objects whose existence has been predicted by physics, but is yet to be confirmed. Conditions in the early universe were very different from what we see around us today. To start with, it was much hotter, and the Big Bang had only produced 3 stable elements. The first 3 on the periodic table, by the way: hydrogen, helium, and a teeny tiny bit of lithium. Because heavier elements make stars a bit cooler and more stable, a lack of them in the early universe would have allowed the first stars, population 3 stars, to grow to unbelievable sizes, perhaps hundreds or even thousands of times the size of our sun. This also meant that they would burn through their fuel much more quickly and reach the end of their lifespan after just a few million years or so. They'd be doomed to explode in one of the universe's first supernovae. But that's where things might have gotten even stranger. When the core of a large star goes supernova, the force of the explosion blasts the outer shell of the star into space, which can create a beautiful nebula. And if the star were actually of sufficient mass, a black hole is left in the center from the collapse of the former star's core. However, it has been hypothesized that if some of these population 3 stars were large enough, their outer layers could have actually withstood and absorbed the blast, remaining intact, all while the core collapses into a black hole. What we're left with is a massive star with a black hole at its center, known as a quasi-star. Now you might be thinking that this black hole would quickly pull in the remaining parts of the star, but this isn't actually the case. While it's true that the black hole would have a strong gravitational pull inward, it would also exert a significant outward pressure in the form of radiation as it ate up matter that fell into it. This balance of forces would result in equilibrium, allowing the star to be somewhat stable for around 7 million years before finally succumbing to the singularity at its core. During their relatively short lifespans, though, these behemoths would have been quite the sight to behold, coming in at an estimated radius of at least 67 astronomical units. An astronomical unit, by the way, is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So for reference, Neptune is about 30 astronomical units from the Sun, and Pluto's average distance is 39, meaning that a quasi-star with a radius of 67 astronomical units would be so large that it would swallow up all of the planets in our solar system with plenty of room to spare, all while being so luminous that it would outshine a small galaxy. It's believed that if these monstrosities truly existed, their black holes could have been some of the first to have ever formed, and might be the origins of supermassive black holes found around the universe today, including the one at the center of our own galaxy. What astronomers aren't certain about, though, is that even if quasi-stars once existed, they certainly aren't today in the Milky Way, as conditions simply wouldn't allow their formation. So to actually find one, we have to look back in time, at galaxies so far away that their light is reaching us billions of years after it was emitted. The only issue is that these galaxies are so incredibly distant that it's virtually impossible to study the composition of individual stars. Now, we do actually have some candidates for a distant group of population 3 stars spotted by the European Southern Observatory in a galaxy known as Cosmos Redshift 7, one of the oldest known galaxies, actually estimated to have 9 years old. But unfortunately, it's likely that we'll never be able to identify an individual quasi-star. So, that was the distant past, and times have changed. But there's a whole category of hypothetical stars that could form and exist in the current era, during our little slice of time, and some of them might even be hiding in our own galaxy. Many of these are variations of a neutron star, which, for a brief review, is the collapsed core of a star that is roughly between 10 and 20 solar masses. At the end of the star's life, the core wasn't quite dense enough to become a black hole, but was still so dense that the force of gravity crushed the protons and electrons together into neutrons, giving the star its name. Even without getting into the hypothetical variations of them, neutron stars on their own are already some of the most bizarre things that we've ever discovered, rotating hundreds of times per second and having a magnetic field up to trillions of times stronger than that of the Earth's. The pure neutron substance that makes up the star is really, really dense, with just a teaspoon of the stuff weighing at least 10 million tons. But it's been hypothesized that some neutron stars could be even more dense than this, and things start to get, well, pretty weird as a result. If the density becomes high enough, it's possible that the neutrons could be crushed into their constituent particles, up and down quarks, resulting in quark matter. This would then be known as a quark star, which would be an incredible discovery, and brings with it some odd predictions for the behavior of free quarks, which would produce on Earth. Surprisingly, there are actually quite a few candidates for quark stars, stemming from observations of so-called overdense neutron stars that have more mass than expected. And there's even one candidate that has its own solar system with at least 2 exoplanets revolving around it. Some researchers have hypothesized that if the conditions in a quark star are just right, it can give rise to something known as strange matter. Strange quarks are one of the 6 flavors of quarks, and under normal conditions they are highly unstable, quickly decaying into an up quark. But once again, under the immense pressures of a quark star, the laws of physics start to bend a little, and it's possible that strange quarks could form stable matter within the core that doesn't decay. The theories go on to suggest that this strange matter could actually be more stable than ordinary matter, and would therefore convert ordinary matter into strange matter upon interaction. Now, if that's true, it would mean that once strange matter forms within a star's core, the entire star would be converted into a strange star. Look, if you're following the trail of assumptions, that means that if this piece of a star were to be ejected into the cosmos and come into contact with, say, our planet, then it would convert the entire planet into strange matter. And these little chunks of doom are called strangelets. And while it's possible that millions are floating out there in space just waiting to turn our planet into an uninhabitable, unrecognizable blob, they're still entirely hypothetical, so don't lose too much sleep over it. Enter the universal side. What would happen if a quark star's density became even higher, moving closer and closer towards the brink of becoming a black hole? Well, this would, hypothetically, form what is known as a Q star, also called a grey hole. They're called grey holes because they don't quite have the gravitational strength of a black hole, which allows no light to escape, but instead they allow just some light to escape their pull. The idea for these arises from what's known as the Schwarzschild radius, a formula that predicts just how dense a certain amount of matter would have to be in order to collapse into itself and form a black hole. For example, if you crunch the numbers, the Schwarzschild radius for the mass of the Earth is about 9 millimeters. So if you could condense the entire planet to fit into somebody's belly button, it would be dense enough to collapse into a black hole. A grey hole is a neutron star that is so dense that it is somewhat near its Schwarzschild radius, but it didn't quite reach it and is still far enough from it to remain stable. The immense gravitational pull would mean that only a fraction of light is able to escape its presence, and would therefore make them nearly impossible for us to see. In fact, if they do exist, they may be indistinguishable from smaller black holes because, from our perspective, they would appear to behave in a nearly identical way. The last hypothetical star that we might be able to spot in our galactic backyard is the Thorn-Zyko object. This is formed when a neutron star collides with a larger star, typically a supergiant, which swallows it entirely. As the neutron star slowly makes its way through the giant's interior, it spins ever closer to the star's core. Once it collides and merges with the core, which can happen after potentially hundreds of years, the star's life would end and a black hole would form as the combined mass collapses in on itself. If the mass is sufficient to create a black hole, then a new neutron star will be formed instead, born from the mass of both stars that preceded it. To spot one of these while the neutron star is still floating around inside the supergiant, we would need to examine the composition of the star in question. This is because the initial collision between the two stars would likely create isotopes that wouldn't be detected in an average star. Using this, along with analysis of gravitational waves, we may be able to spot whether or not a massive red giant is harboring a neutron star within. There are a few candidates for these as well, including U Aquarii, a star found in the constellation Aquarius, but nothing concrete has been discovered thus far. Our final group of hypothetical stars are the ones that we haven't seen, not because they're invisible, difficult to distinguish, or otherwise hidden from our view, but simply because they won't even come into existence for a very, very long time. If you remember our mention of the early universe, you'll recall that in the beginning there was an abundance of hydrogen and helium and a near complete lack of heavier elements. But as time has marched onward, stars have continued to recycle elements, fusing them into heavier and heavier forms and spreading the matter across the universe. This is why stars today contain so many more elements than their ancestors, and also why we can find so many interesting materials and materials. If we follow the trend forward in time, perhaps trillions of years into the future, we could reach a point where stars contain so many impurities of heavier elements that they are able to burn at much lower temperatures. And when the core is burning at a cooler temperature, the surface temperature drops as well. It's been hypothesized that the surface of these cooler stars could potentially reach 0 degrees Celsius, allowing for ice clouds to form on the surface. Frozen star. Now, what's really fascinating about this is that it's not hard to imagine microscopic life surviving in such ice clouds if the conditions are just right. Trillions of years into the future sounds like a really long time for frozen stars to appear, but this is just a metaphoric drop in the bucket compared with how long we'd have to wait to see our final hypothetical star, the Iron Star. As the universe ages on, perhaps quadrillions of years from now, even the resilient dwarf stars will begin to cool down, with white dwarfs, for example, becoming a hypothetical black dwarf, completely exhausted of all heat and energy producing reactions. But even once their light has gone out, the story isn't over. Random interactions through a process called quantum tunneling still have the potential to fuse heavier elements together, ultimately resulting in iron. These types of interactions take so long to play out that they are essentially meaningless from the human perspective. Given an unfathomable amount of time, the iron generated in these old stars would slowly add up, atom by atom, until the entire sphere is a solid hunk of matter, an iron star. There is one caveat, though. We aren't sure if protons decay. If they do, then the universe will forever be solid matter long before iron stars have a chance to form. But if they don't decay, wait long enough, and iron stars will likely begin appearing around the universe. But just how long, you might ask? To see an iron star, it's estimated that you would need to wait an astonishing 10 to the power of 1,500 years. That is a number so big we can't even really put it into perspective, and really wouldn't do it justice even if we tried. It's so large that it's almost insulting to compare it to something as relatively tiny as the total number of atoms in the observable universe. In fact, 10 to the power of 1,500 years is such a long time from now that the heat death of the universe will already be in full swing, with even black holes having evaporated. So, by the time they formed, iron stars would likely be among the only remaining objects in a cold, dark, and empty universe devoid of light. Anyone who has lived through a natural disaster will tell you that it is a frightening experience that they wouldn't wish on anyone, not only due to the threat of death, but the utter destruction that is left in their wake. Entire communities are often devastated by extreme weather conditions, and although some areas are rebuilt, some natural disasters are of such a magnitude that they change the world, and indeed human history forever. 2019 global wildfires. 2019 was a year fraught with massive wildfires that raged across the globe, thanks in part to a 1.71 degree Fahrenheit, that's 0.95 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures that saw countries in Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas reach never-before-seen highs believed to have been brought on by the increase in global warming. This created the perfect storm of conditions for wildfires to thrive in. Dry brush and grasslands coupled with rising temperatures and prevailing winds, making these infernos virtually unstoppable. In Australia alone, close to 6,000 wildfires decimated an area of about 12 million acres throughout the year, and while Australians are no strangers to wildfires, 2019 proved a different foe, with some animal species being driven to near extinction by the merciless blazes. In the Amazon, 12 million hectares succumbed to the flames, while the region endured their second highest set of temperatures ever recorded, leading to a staggering 224,000 wildfires in the Amazon basin. Considering the fact that the Amazon rainforest supplies our planet with around 20% of its oxygen, this is no small issue, and it can have a real and lasting effect on global climate. Surprisingly, the Arctic also suffered a record number of wildfires during the year, 4,700 in total, with 8.3 million hectares reported to have been scorched. This resulted in 129 megatons of CO2 being emitted in June and July alone, dwarfing the emissions in that area for the entire period between 2010 and 2018. In Siberia, fires burned large enough to reach parts of Canada and Alaska. Greenland saw 93,000 acres of wood and grassland destroyed, causing 80 billion tons of ice sheet to disappear in just 10 days. Across Europe, more than 1,600 fires burned through 271,000 hectares, and in California alone, nearly 8,000 fires raged across 105,000 hectares. Africa and Asia saw over 14,000 fires combined, destroying more than 1.8 million acres of land and leaving untold destruction behind. The effects of these fires on the planet are unprecedented, with one study finding that just the fires in Australia alone caused the hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica to worsen exponentially. This is expected to lead to even higher average global temperatures, which in turn is likely to cause more wildfires in what can only be described as a devastating cycle of destruction. Krakatoa. One of the most astonishing natural disasters ever recorded occurred in May 1883, when the small island of Krakatoa, or Krakatau, located between Java and Sumatra, erupted in an unprecedented volcanic event that rocked the globe. The eruption was so powerful it could be heard more than 4,500 kilometers or 3,000 miles away, the sound still regarded today as the loudest ever recorded. Pressure waves created by the blast circled the globe several times over, affecting scientific instruments as far away as the UK and United States. As much as 25 cubic kilometers, that's 6 cubic miles of volcanic ash and rock, were flung from the volcano, the ash reaching heights of 50 miles above the island. As the volcano collapsed into the caldera, which is the resulting hollow left behind by the blast, a series of tsunamis formed, the highest of which is believed to have reached 120 feet or 36 meters. 165 villages in Java and Sumatra were completely decimated, killing 36,000 people, including the crew of the Burrell steamship, which was eventually found close to a mile inland from the Sumatran shore. To put the sheer power of the eruption into context, compare it to the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, which measured with a force of 20 kilotons. The Krakatoa eruption measured close to 10,000 times that, with a force of 200 megatons. The resulting darkness caused by ash in the atmosphere resulted in great drops in temperature, not only locally but across the planet, as the average global temperature fell by nearly a full degree Fahrenheit or half degree Celsius. Areas as far away as Los Angeles saw record-breaking amounts of rainfall, and for the next 100 years, temperatures in our oceans remained low, leading many scientists to believe that if the eruption hadn't occurred, sea levels would be devastatingly higher than they are today. The Dust Bowl. During the 1930s in the American Midwest, farms were mostly used to raise livestock until the outbreak of World War I, when the demand for wheat skyrocketed. Hence, farmers abandoned their efforts at raising cattle, and millions of acres of farmland were upturned in favor of wheat production. But as the war raged on, the demand for wheat only intensified, prompting farmers to increase its production, resulting in the overcultivation of the land. This, coupled with a severe drought that struck the region at just the wrong time, had disastrous effects on the topsoil, which now no longer possessed the native grasses that cattle grazed on. These grasses contained the moist roots that kept the topsoil where it should be, and when heavy winds started to pummel the area, massive amounts of topsoil, as much as 1.1 billion metric tons, was carried off in dust storms known as black blizzards that often blocked out the sun for hours on end. Not only did this have a massive negative effect on agriculture, but many people succumbed to dust pneumonia, also known as the brown plague, after they inhaled dust particles containing high levels of silica, bringing about a slow and painful death that included symptoms of severe fever, coughing fits, chest pains, and shallow breathing. The worst of these blizzards occurred on the 14th of April 1935, when up to 3 million tons of topsoil was lifted by winds on the Great Plains and blown away, resulting in the term Dust Bowl being coined due to the severe soil erosion that had taken place. as ever more people died, either from starvation, disease, or during migration to greener pastures. Then President Franklin D. Roosevelt started to address the poor land management that had caused the disaster in the first place by establishing the Soil Erosion Service and the Prairie States Forestry Project. Farmers were told to plant trees that acted as windbreaks, and they were educated on proper farming techniques such as crop rotation that not only kept the topsoil in place, but restored vital nutrients back into the earth for future crops to flourish. These techniques are still implemented in crop farming today, a solution that may not have come about if it weren't for the terrible lessons learned during the Dust Bowl. Tangshan earthquake. In 1976, China's political situation was one of disarray amid the country's cultural revolution, with the reigning Communist Party chairman Mao Zedong struggling with ill health, spending much of his time in hospital. Much of the Chinese public had started voicing their displeasure with the excesses brought about by the revolution, and Premier Zhao Enlai echoed their sentiments, calling for the modernization of the country's agriculture, defenses, and sciences. This drew the ire of the Gang of Four, a group of prominent Communist Party members, which consisted of Zedong's wife, Jian Qing, Wang Hongwen, Yao Wengyang, and Zhang Chongquo. When Enlai passed away on the 8th of January 1976, they ordered that the public refrain from displays of grief. However, hundreds of thousands of members of the public gathered in Tiananmen Square in mourning, suggesting that they had had enough of the central government and its policies. 6 months later, the northern city of Tangshan was struck by a 7.8 magnitude earthquake that destroyed all but 15% of the city's buildings and producing tremors that were felt as far away as Xi'an. That's 470 miles away. On the 4th of August, Premier Hua Guofeng visited the city to express his condolences to the families that lost loved ones. The response from the Gang of Four was to remind the Chinese public that the earthquake wasn't as important as denouncing Enlai's successor, Deng Xiaoping, stating, "There were merely several 100,000 deaths. So what? Denouncing Deng Xiaoping concerns 800 million people." Mao Zedong would eventually pass away on the 9th of September, and instead of being replaced by one of the Gang of Four, the Chinese public rallied behind Hua Guofeng after he showed concern for their well-being after the disastrous quake. He ordered all the members of the Gang of Four to be arrested for treason, bringing an end to the Chinese Cultural Revolution and ushering in a new age in the country that allowed it to become the massive economic power that it has developed into today. The Dust Veil of 536 AD. In 536 AD, Asia, the Middle East, and Europe were plunged into darkness by a strange fog that blacked out much of the sun for nearly a year and a half. The cause of the fog was considered a mystery, with some scientists speculating that it was caused by a comet passing close by or possibly striking Earth, or by smoke from fires burning in lands unknown. However, in 2018, scientists from the Climate Change Institute at the University of Maine studied ice taken from a Swiss glacier and discovered that the fog was caused by a volcanic eruption that took place in Iceland in the year 536. This eruption was followed by two more in 540 and 547 respectively. This data was backed up by studies on tree rings in the 1990s that showed that the year 540 was extraordinarily cold, and coupled with the Justinian plague that lasted from 541 to 549 AD, Europe suffered a massive economic blow. Due to the absence of sunlight, famine spread thanks to an inability to raise decent crops, and temperatures dropped dramatically across the globe, causing many people to succumb either from hunger or a lack of shelter. It is believed that the plague, which was caused by rats and fleas, spread much faster and further, since both the rats and fleas could thrive in the cool temperatures brought on by the fog. It was also exacerbated by malnutrition due to a lack of food and deficiency in vitamin D that, in part, would have been provided by sunlight. And so, thanks to the unexpected union between volcanic eruption and flea-ridden vermin, many historians have hailed 536 AD as the worst year for anyone to have ever lived. And considering the many atrocities and disasters that have occurred in our lifetimes alone, that's really saying something. Today's video is brought to you by Surfshark, the affordable VPN service. More on them in a bit. Fiction is replete with examples of incredible heroic animals, from the littlest hobo and Lassie to fantastic Mr. Fox and Hazel from Watership Down. Fictional animals have captured the hearts and minds of people, both young and old, ever since storytelling began. But it is not just the world of fiction that can bring us tales of awe-inspiring resilience, bravery, and loyalty. Throughout history, there have been many, many stories of animals who truly did go above and beyond. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at some of these animals and their exceptional accomplishments. Originally named Oscar after the letter O from the phonetic alphabet, which was used as the code for man overboard, this cat truly did appear to have 9 lives. As the story goes, he started his life as a stowaway on board the Bismarck, and in May 1941, when the Bismarck sank, he was transferred to the HMS Cossack after being found floating on a piece of wood. Oscar would remain on board the Cossack as a sort of mascot while it conducted convoy escorts in the North Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Unfortunately, on the 24th of October 1941, the Cossack would sustain serious damage during a U-boat attack. Although attempts were made to return the Cossack to Gibraltar, it would ultimately be abandoned en route. Oscar was discovered among the survivors that were rescued by HMS Legion and would subsequently be transferred to the HMS Ark Royal. It was at this point that he acquired the nickname Unsinkable Sam. Although he did appear to be unsinkable, his miraculous powers of survival did not seem to be able to protect the ships on which he travelled, and on the 14th of November 1941, the Ark Royal was severely damaged by yet another torpedo attack. Although attempts were made to tow the ship back to Gibraltar, this would ultimately prove unsuccessful, and she would eventually be abandoned approximately 30 miles offshore. Oscar, along with all but one of the Ark Royal's crew, was rescued by HMS Lightning. Shortly thereafter, Oscar was transferred to the HMS Legion, where he spent the remainder of his time at sea. After enjoying a brief stay in the offices of the governor of Gibraltar, Unsinkable Sam was transferred one final time to the Belfast Home for Sailors, where he is said to have lived out the remainder of his life, both happy and permanently dry. On the 16th of October 1996, a mother and her 3-year-old boy were enjoying a day out at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. The day appears to have proceeded just like any other visit. That is until the family reached the gorilla enclosure. About time, the zoo was home to a small tribe of 7 western right now gorillas. The young family stopped to spend some time observing their behavior. It was at this point that the simple trip to the zoo almost became fatal for the young boy. While attempting to get a closer look at the gorillas, he slipped and fell 25 feet straight down into the enclosure. The full result is in the child breaking his hand, being knocked unconscious, and bleeding profusely from the side of his face. Understandably, the watching crowd and the boy's mother were terrified of what might happen next. But in this case,
you're the pilgrim Albert told me is helping us rebuild humanity's library.
Uncertain as to what they should do
Albert's
next.
a wonderful
Lindsay,
man.
with her own
We're
child
not in the
riding
middle
on
of
her
the
back,
Renaissance,
approached
you know.
the child and gently cradled him in her arms before carrying him to the door of the enclosure, whereupon she gently laid him on the ground and retreated to a safe distance
tell me what
so
you
that
think.
he could be retrieved by paramedics.
Between
Moreover,
the Bible
this is
and
not the
Hans
first
Christian
time
Andersen's
gorillas
fairy
have behaved
tales,
in a similar fashion.
which
In
would you
1986,
consider
under
a
similar
better
circumstances,
guide to
Jambo,
human
a
behavior?
400-pound silverback gorilla, stood guard over an unconscious 5-year-old boy who had fallen
fairy
into his
tales for
enclosure
sure.
at the zoo
Doesn't have
on
an agenda.
the island of
Yes,
Jersey.
but
As the 5-year-old
think of
lay
how
on the
the
ground,
Bible has
Jambo stroked his
I
back
must
while
be
ensuring that
Albert
none
now.
of the other gorillas got
Speaking
too
of
close.
which,
When the boy
here are
regained
the
consciousness and began to cry, the silverback calmly led the other gorillas back to a small hut in the corner of their enclosure so that the young boy could be retrieved. Although Jambo passed away in 1992, Linty, who is actually the niece of Coco the sign language gorilla, is happily living in the same zoo alongside her daughter and granddaughter. Now, if you're concerned about protecting your online privacy and security, then Surfshark is the solution for you. When you use Surfshark's VPN service, your internet connection is encrypted, which means that your online activity is hidden from any third parties that might be monitoring you. Additionally, Surfshark hides your IP address, which makes it more difficult for websites to track your online activity or for hackers to target your device. Not only does Surfshark protect your privacy, but it also allows you to access content that may be restricted in your location. That means you can explore the internet without any limitations and enjoy a truly unrestricted browsing experience. But that's not all. Surfshark is also incredibly affordable. Right now, you can get Surfshark at surfshark.deals/sideprojects, and if you use the promo code sideprojects, you'll get an amazing 83% off and 3 extra months for free. And another advantage of using Surfshark when you shop online is they can help you find the cheapest prices for the products you want. It can also give you access to online stores that might not normally be available in your country, especially useful if you're looking for products that aren't available in your country, or maybe wanted to get a lower price from somewhere else. Surfshark's Scientific advancement is a tireless and often fruitless endeavor. It can take decades or even centuries for difficult advancements to be achieved as researchers painstakingly analyze a problem from every possible angle trying to find a solution. It's usually a slow and deliberate process, and major breakthroughs are rarely made overnight. Rarely doesn't mean never. Sometimes these breakthroughs happen entirely by accident. A scientist could discover a new and practical application for their research that wasn't the intended result, or their experiment may reveal something completely unrelated. Today, we're going to look at some of the greatest scientific discoveries that were completely unintentional.
Heard some of the butcher's men have developed a taste for human flesh.
Penicillin was discovered entirely by accident by a man described as a careless lab technician. Fortunately for the rest of the world and for all of medical science, that lab technician, Sir Alexander Fleming, must not have been terribly fastidious about cleaning his equipment. Fleming worked for the laboratory of the inoculation department at St Mary's Hospital in London. He had been conducting research into the flu virus, and part of his research involved growing a culture of Staphylococcus bacteria. He left the culture to grow, and then he went on vacation for a couple of weeks. When he returned from his vacation, the results of Fleming's carelessness were immediately visible. The culture plate where he was growing the staph bacteria was full of penicillin mold. However, he noticed that the presence of the mold was hindering the growth of the bacteria. Further examination showed that the mold was producing a chemical to protect itself, which he named penicillin. In 1929, Fleming published his discovery in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology and presented it to the Medical Research Club. Surprisingly,